Hey guys, here it is, 38 pounds, 9 ounces. That's the grand total. That's all the barley I grew this year. It's the Maris Otter, and I figure I better start making some malt here. First one I'm going to do, since the weather's so nice, it's been so nice lately, I'm going to try making a wind malt. If you don't know what a wind malt is, it's just basically a green malt that's been air dried. It's not used anymore, but apparently it was used in Belgium. I'm going to be making about 5 pounds and combining that in a recipe with about 50% wheat to make a wit beer, and just to see what it tastes like. So apparently these malts were dried in special lofts, and that's about all I know about them. I'm up here in my garage right by the roof. I'm on a ladder, and this is a south-facing roof, so it actually absorbs a lot of the heat from the sun on a nice day, and it can get pretty warm up here. Right now it's 28 degrees, whereas outside in the shade it's about 18. So I'm going to try drying it up here. I got a nice draft coming in through the vents down here and up to the vent above. And this is where I usually dry my hops and some other things, and I can dry the hops in about a day, day and a half, so it's a great spot. Don't know if it's anything like what they used to use, but that's what I got, so I'll give it a shot. So this barley has a moisture content of 9%, and I'm going for 5 pounds, which means the bone dry weight is 4.55 pounds. If I take that number, and because I'm shooting for a 42% moisture content, if I divide the bone dry weight by 0.58, I'm going to get target steep weight of 7.85 pounds. So it's been germinating for 6 days, and because it's starting to sprout, I felt I had to get it dry. So it's sitting here sort of in front of a window, and I've got my fan, or my wind. It's an oscillating fan, just goes back and forth. I checked the temperature in the garage up in the rafters, and it was about 20-21 degrees, because it's getting quite a bit cooler now outside, and at night I'm sure it's a lot lower, probably around 15 degrees. So I thought I'd just do it this way inside, where the temperature is around 21 and it's consistent, and probably gets a little bit warmer out here in front of the window, and I'm thinking this is going to be dry in maybe a few days. So one of the advantages of kilning malt like this is that the rootlets become very brittle and they break off really easily, and you can get rid of them altogether. But if you have malt that's just been air dried like this, the roots are very tough and very hair-like, and kind of flexible, so they don't actually fall off. I'm gonna try and take off as many as I can, just using this strainer here and rubbing the grain against it. And some of the rootlets are going to fall off, but most of them are probably going to stay stuck onto the grain. Apparently in the olden days, the rootlets would stay on, and they would just include that in the mash. This is going to contribute sort of a bitter flavor, apparently. I've never experienced it, so it's going to be interesting to see what that flavor is. Well, the grinding is going very slowly. My rollers on this roller mill don't seem to catch on It's not like it's super hard or anything. It's just it's not going in between the rollers. You know, it's not as brittle as your regular malt. Anyway, I've been putting just a little bit at a time in my roller mill and then putting some pressure on it with my hand, and that way sort of forcing it through. Let's see, it just slips every once in a while. I think maybe a roller with bigger teeth on it would work, just to grab it more. I think the problem is that the outside is more smooth and the grain itself is softer, so it just kind of bounces off the rollers. But very slow going. You know, I tried the drill, but that was just going too fast, and this is basically how I've been doing it for the past hour. A couple of cups at a time. Oops. But I'm almost done. And I've tried adjusting the rollers. I can do that with this mill. You'll make it wider, but you know, you go too wide and the grain just falls through, doesn't get crushed enough. So, you know, I've tried a lot of different stuff. This seems to be the only thing that's working. Good thing I only have 5 pounds of it. So I got a pretty disappointing result. My brew day went fine, but original gravity is 1.0378. So I'm going to end up with a pretty low alcohol beer, which is fine, probably good for a change. It could be due to 2 things. Could be the crush. I just didn't crush the grains enough. Should have run it through again, but I was kind of tired of cranking that thing. Another reason could be the uneven germination I had in this batch. But we'll see how it turns out in a couple weeks. Okay, so what I made with the Wind Malt is a wit beer with 5 pounds of the Wind Malt and 5 pounds of oats. No, sorry. 5 pounds of Wind Malt, 5 pounds of wheat, and ½ pound of oats. I also used 4 ounces of acid malt to correct the pH. I added an ounce of bitter orange peel and an ounce of crushed coriander as well. Hops were an ounce of Zaz for 60 minutes, ½ ounce of Hallertau for 20, and an ounce of Zaz for the last 5 minutes. Because the grain wasn't crushed properly, I got a really low original gravity. It was very disappointing. It was 1.0378. I think had I run it through the mill one more time, I could have gotten some better results. It was pretty big and chunky. But it finished really, really dry. The final gravity was 1.0032. So that gives this beer an alcohol content of 4.4%, which isn't bad. But because it fermented so well, it has 0 body to it, and it's actually almost kind of watery. A mistake I made was just doing the protein rests. I gave it 2 protein rests, which was totally overkill. So I had 30 minutes at 122 and 30 minutes at 131. Thought I had to do this because of the wheat, but and I wasn't sure how this malt was going to react or what it was going to do. But because it has all its enzymes, it had a lot of diastatic power, so it probably wasn't necessary to do these protein rests even, or maybe a short one would have been fine. So let's pour it out, see what it looks like. It's actually not a bad drinking beer. It's got that nice wheat beer flavor.
The yeast I used was the Berliner Weiss White Labs. The head doesn't stick around long, but it's nice and it's a light color. It's quite clear. A really good summer beer, I guess, but it's again kind of watery. There's one thing that's very interesting about this is that there's no real off flavors here. I was totally expecting something pretty nasty. The malt, when you don't kiln it, has a sort of grassy flavor to it. As well, I couldn't get all the roots off, so a lot of those rootlets ended up in the mash, and from what I've read, actually are supposed to contribute some pretty off flavors, but what I'm getting here is very clean tasting beer. So it's super dry, just not sweet at all. There's no sweetness there, but I do taste the orange peel and the coriander, and it's got a nice wit beer character. It's slightly sour, which I think is due to the yeast. So I'm gonna try this again. I think it's worth trying one more time without all the protein rests in there, and seeing what kind of beer I can come up with, and seeing what the differences are. Anyway, cheers.